Jetzt? Hello, Jan Zehrfeld. The Germans are talking in English now.
The Germans. Hello,
Yes.
Markus.
Hey, good to see you again. I think
very good. Very good to see you. We see each other every couple of years.
No, it was actually last year, right? And when you had like this one show in Berlin and with like 40 seats or something, which was rather funny.
Yes, it was fun, and I was at your concert in Zurich with Devin Townsend. It was in December 2019, before COVID.
Yeah, before and after COVID. The question is there really an after COVID? I don't think so.
Oh my goodness. Let's be optimistic that.
No, I'm optimistic, but it's not going to be after. It's going to be with COVID, you know. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, probably.
Hey, how old is your child now?
Oh, he's 5. He's 5. He's so cute. Just yesterday I had one day of we played with his little cars. He's mad about his tiny cars, and he likes to drive. I get a car sharing cabrio. He wants always to drive cabrio with me. And yesterday was beautiful weather, so I was getting my son into. We were just riding through Munich in beautiful autumn with a BMW cabrio. So
great. Yeah, you know, like I would like to use this opportunity to talk with you really about anything, really whatever comes up. It's like, you know, this format I'm doing here is completely open, and you know, like I was trying to, you know, to think. I mean, we've talked for a few hours, like, or many hours already, like, you know, whenever we met, but there's certain things that I really don't know about you, which I would be really interested in, like especially what is like your earliest musical upbringing and like your musical influence. I know it's kind of like a standard question, but you know, if we have that question, you know, within our you know, within musicians, it's something else to ask that question. So what really made you fall in love with music?
To ultimately fall in love with music was actually when I was a teenager, with 15, 16 years. But when I was a kid, my mom, she sent me to cello classes, and it was kind of a nice thing. I mean, first I learned the recorder like every child, and then my recorder teacher said, "Oh, my husband, he plays the cello, and oh, you're so cute. You cello. I think I see the cello with you," something like that. And my mother liked the idea about the cello, so I took up cello, and it was nice, but it was never a real passion. So I played it for 8 years and practiced, but well, because I had to practice, and there was some fun times. I played in school orchestras and some other orchestras, and it was it was a good for my skills, for my fingers and coordination, for reading music. This was a basic thing, but important thing for later. But the ultimate love for music, so that I wanted to do nothing else than music, came with the electric guitar when I was 16. So it was the rock music. This was the like heavy metal boom and hard rock boom, the early 90s. Guns N' Roses, Metallica, AC/DC. So one day I just So I got my very first album was on audio cassette. A friend, he copied me. He had a copy of Back in Black from AC/DC. I listened to it like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day, and the first thing, yeah, when someone told me or asked me to be, I was in a school choir, and there was a friend of mine who wanted to have a singer in his band, and he knew me, and he said, well, do you want to be a singer in our band because you sing? And I said, well, yeah, but I want to play guitar. So something like this. Okay, you can, if you sing, you can also play some guitar to it. And, wow, okay. So that was the moment when I told my mom, and she bought me an electric guitar. So, and I started learning riffs by AC/DC, and my first tabs were AC/DC riffs, later Metallica riffs. So this was my and I got obsessed with music. 1 year later, after all this rock and metal stuff, I got there was we had a big band at school, a jazz big band, and we had one teacher who was very active in getting the students into to listen to jazz music and go to jazz concerts. So actually listen to the concerts, and he organized like a bus to go with students to a concert and then go back, or he organized these trips to concerts, and this was my and he was also trying to get music students who were already playing an instrument, to get them to play in the big band. So he was a jazz messenger, whatever. He tried, and I was one of the students who got into this, and he organized jazz workshops with jazz musicians at the school too. So that's when I got in touch with jazz. And so I went to these concerts. One of my first concerts was jazz concert where the Brecker brothers back then, the Out of the Loop tour in, I think it was 92 or something, 93 or 94, something like that. And it was still one of my most important, it had a big impact up to this day. Just remembering this concert by the Brecker brothers, and listening to Dean Brown was playing guitar, and I will never forget how he was holding his guitar, how he was some of the riffs he was playing. I remembered all of that, and how Michael Brecker played his MIDI saxophone, the EV.
Mm-hmm.
And this was very important for later. This my first experience with jazz rock fusion music, and back then I didn't have any idea about what are these guys doing? Are they improvising? Are they what's the difference? I didn't know even there's a difference between playing a theme and improvising. This was like one thing for me. I didn't when I got into jazz later, I recognized that I could distinguish between that, but back then it was just I had no idea. But still, the impression of this concert by the Brecker brothers was a big one.
I can imagine. So everything went really quick, from like having had cello lessons and then suddenly discovering metal, getting an electric guitar, and you said a year later your teacher took you, like, then started taking you to a jazz concert. So
right.
So
and
did you
taking jazz guitar, like learning, going to jazz guitar workshops and learning about jazz guitar too, and also starting playing in a local jazz band, trying to get behind all these chord changes, and I also joined the school big band, so trying to sink into the music of jazz. I was obsessed with it, and I recognized this is something that I really want to do. I want to do nothing else than that. So
amazing.
a couple of years later. But before that, I always wanted to be something similar to what my dad was doing. He used to be a scientist, a physicist, plasma physics, and researcher. And then I even took up for my parents. It was their wish for me to pick up something, to get a real job, and then I studied mechanical engineering. But I 1 year after starting into that, I realized I only want actually what I want to do is play just music. So I decided to take a chance for an entrance examination for music, and eventually I got into Graz, into the jazz department there, and picked up jazz guitar. I dropped my mechanical engineering, and from that day on, that I got admitted to the school in Graz back then in 99, or 98, from that day on, it was really like 100% music.
In which year were you born? Like 78 or something, or
77.
77.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I see. Yeah, and so like, just because I want to understand better, so the cello, you dropped that, like you were just just stopped going to the classes, or
when it was like there was 1 year layover between cello and guitar.
Okay.
And if it was just the cello, because at that time you could choose at school if you want to focus on music and maybe go to a music school later, or start a musical career, you can go to a grammar school which specializes in music. And there was, at one point, they were looking for music students, and they said, hey, you play the cello, why don't you go to these classes, or to specialize in music? And I said, but with cello I wouldn't have done that. It wasn't my passion. With guitar I would have, but back then it was not like possible. I wasn't far enough with guitar, and back then I didn't think of being a professional musician. I could actually do it. I just realized in 1-2 years that I want to do nothing else. So, but the cello was never the ultimate passion. But I still benefit from having learned the cello and having
for
learned
sure.
Yeah.
That's unavoidable, I guess, like in hindsight, if you think about it, having played a fretless instrument, like for your ear, it must be something really and like basically the relationship between your ear and your hands, kind of like this idea that you need to fret properly to get the right pitch.
Absolutely, yes. And also getting to, because what I've always been doing is working with orchestras, like big bands, or also orchestras, like modern orchestras, who also use electric guitar. It was this kind of work, or musicals or whatever. It was, it was important to already have some expertise with this kind of work. So
hey, I can feel your obsession, right? I can feel it, your obsession with music, which is wonderful. Hey, so because I'm just curious, so you said it was the electric guitar. So do you remember, was it the sound of the electric guitar first? So was it hearing metal, or was it actually having a guitar in your hands? Which kind of electric guitar has?
It was one particular evening, or one particular thing that brought me to it. It was we were in I was in the choir, and we were at a camp with the choir and the big band, and those big band guys, they were jamming in the evenings. And they were, and I was never at a rock concert before, so I didn't know how loud actually rock music can become. And this was so important up to this day. This was maybe one of the most important impacts. Hearing those guys jam like on Knocking on Heaven's Door or whatever, and they had this, and I had this friend of mine. He was playing electric guitar. I had never watched him play actually, but he was in this band. He was really good already for his age, and he was playing great lead and rhythm guitar, and it was so powerful. They were jamming, and I thought, wow, music can get so much power, and the distorted guitar can transport so much energy. I mean, I guess it's something that in a much bigger style, maybe some people were realizing it when hearing. I wasn't there, but I can imagine like hearing Jimi Hendrix crank up his amps in Woodstock and blowing people's minds with all this, with the loudness, the loudness as a major important ingredient for transporting the music, and
Yes.
and that was since that day. That was the day when I decided I want to pick up electric guitar, and that's up to now. It's always been important in every kind of music that I play. It has to that this loudness is something that is important to me, to be not only loudness, but also the possibility to become loud, or this is a means of expression as a important part of expression.
So
and I want the people to be exposed to this loudness.
So you're talking about the physical aspect of sound.
The physical power. That's why in the whole Corona thing, like having these online shows and whatever, this had made no sense to me, because I want my audience to be exposed to physical, this physical, not violence, but whatever power. This is essential. If you don't have that, it means nothing to me, or not half of it. Well, maybe some there is music that works that way, but if I want to express myself, it has to be this physical element of distorted or amplified loud music. That was always
exactly. That's the word. The amplification. I think. Because like I've never thought about it, but what you just said, I think is very, very true for me as well. With the electric instrument, where like basically you're just playing like a bing, like the one, but the power that comes from the amplification of that small sound, that is quite something, because it sort of works like a magnifying glass. So like you have this small movement, this small vibration, and it explodes, and I love that too. Yeah.
And then you have the how do you say, the Wechselwirkung, you can it comes back to you, the power comes back to you, and it starts
it's like a feedback.
resonating.
Resonating.
Resonating. And this is the ultimate, this is the reason why I perform music, because I want to transport this energy. So that's why certain musical styles are nice to play, and it's nice to play in a jazz cafe and play some in the background, some nice music, and that's okay. That's totally okay. But that's not why I picked up this instrument. I picked up this instrument because it's about this, and this is what my band, for instance, was always. What I'm known for is I'm always the guy who's too loud. I mean, since you have in-ears, this is not a topic anymore. But back then, when we played with wedges and with boxes, I was one of the guys who was always asked to turn down a little bit.
I was going to ask you about the in-ears, because like, whenever I talk with people who have not had the experience of using in-ears, Like the first argument they bring is that they think they will lack the physical feedback if it goes through the ear, doesn't go through the air, really. Like, you know, that's the difference, right? What is your take on that now?
It's an ongoing thing, but I think now we found something really awesome. Yeah, of course, you start experimenting. I picked up experimenting with or playing with in-ears maybe 10 or 12 years something ago, and it's always there are always good things about it, bad things about it, and or upside and downsides to it. But the solution we have now is, I think that's great. We're using with Panzerballett, with my band, we have songs with click tracks, so we have to have the in-ear. And it's always the major benefit is to play loud, distorted music, but it's always accurate. This is the benefit of it. But of course, it's lacking this physical power. So what I do now is I use in-ear, but I still use an amp that's mic'd, and I still crank up the amp. So I have both thing. So both. It's maybe it's a compromise. I don't crank it up that loud, so to have the stage sound under control for the sound guy, but it's the best. It has been the best solution, using real amps which are mic'd with, but still, using. Pardon me. Now it's a mix. My sound is a mix of a modified amp, like a digital processor. I have the XFX and my Angle amp, which goes through a power amp and a box which is mic'd. So I have both signals. Sometimes I combine them, sometimes I use only one of them. But I always have a sound on stage. So because we found out when not having a box, you just have the direct sound going through the front of house. Then but what also became important is taking videos from yourself and posting them. So, but putting your phone next to you when you don't hear yourself on stage, you just hear the drums, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
so that's another reason why it's good to actually have some amp on stage which makes a sound.
Of course, yeah. and you know, like people standing very close to the stage, they only hear the drums, they don't hear the guitars. You know, you need to be further back.
Right.
To get
how do you do it? How do you do it?
Like for me, the ideal, like what you just said, is ideals to have like at least a wedge on stage, so to have some physical presence of the sounds on stage. So like with the trio, for example, you know, just have the drummer have wedges, and you know, I have in-ears, and that's perfect, really. Like, so that keeps the level on stage down, but there's still like the signals start gelling better. They kind of like merge into one thing if you have some bleed happening. And so that's why I kind of like prefer even to have some bleed in the drum mics. Makes everything easier. You know, it will the mix engineer only has to bring up like those, like stereo drum kit, let's say, and two guitars, guitar and bass, and that's it. If you have in-ears and two wedges on stage, I think that's the perfect solution for me. Like an amplifier for myself, I don't need it. I feel that a wedge is enough.
Okay.
Yeah. But it has yeah.
In your trio too, so in your trio situation, so you have a guitar, bass, and drums, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. So for if there's anything with the click, then obviously all people in the band need in-ears, But this most recent trio that I had put together, we played with we didn't play with a click. So it was perfect. The drummer didn't have in-ears, we had in-ears, and that was sort of like, it was an amazing experience actually, because if you know, like if the stage sound is low enough so that you can bring up the overheads into your in-ears, and basically you kind of like, you hear every single detail of what the drummer does, and you hear yourself direct through the in-ears. That is sort of like great for me. And what I have also figured out, if the show is loud enough, so if the front of house is loud enough, I still get the physical feedback of the instrument sort of like interacting with the room, you know, but the sound in the room needs to be loud enough. So, you know, like, and then in smaller clubs, like sometimes I really enjoyed a lot. Like I get shocked sometimes when I'm standing too close to the main speaker and my instrument actually feedbacking with the speaker, and it does feel good, I have to say. But then when I don't have it, I don't miss it anymore. It's like with, you know, these modern processors that have really good good compressors and stuff. You know, like you get the endless sustain. Anyway, you don't need physical feedback anymore, I think.
Okay. Just one interesting thing. I wonder also if you have come across this thing, because it's happened to me several times. You have found a solution for yourself, like a sound solution, or you had one and then you switched to a different one. And after a couple of years, you go back to the old one and you realize the old one was much better. And how could I fall for this trick or whatever? I was ich habe mir eingebildet,
I believed
I believed that this new thing was the best to do, but this was for myself. And back in, I think 2010 or something, switching everything, selling all my gear, my amps, my tube amps, and just using the digital processor, and using it for 2 years, and then and then one day I played after a couple of years, I played on a real amp again, and I thought, my goodness, this is so much better. How could I? Because there used to be a latency in this digital processor, and which wasn't there in the amp. And same thing goes to this physical power. When I one day on stage, I remember it was a show in Vienna, and my in-ear, it broke down, or the plug, something broke in my earplug. So I had to play without earplug. I had to hear myself from the front of house. And I realized two things. Oh my goodness, I cannot play that exact anymore, because we play very loud but very accurate. But on the other side, I thought, my goodness, I missed something for years. The power you get from if you don't play with the in-ears, if you play with the real only the physical power, this was blowing me away. I thought, wow, that's so good. I mean, like the combination of having of playing accurate and powerful. And if you have an accurate band like Meshuggah, for instance, or whatever, who play powerful and accurate, and this transports so much energy and power. That's my that's always been one of my main intentions, to produce power. And second element is the accuracy. And that's my thing.
You know, I really have to say, I don't want to go back not to use in-ears, because like my hearing was really suffering when I was you know, and like there were these times where like my ears felt as if there was water in them, like after really loud shows. And it was the time, like about 10 years ago, when Tony Levin, he was already going slightly deaf, and he had like these like like 3 speakers and 2 monitors, like five speakers around him on the floor, and so horribly loud. And Pat Maslow plays extremely loud, and and yeah, it wasn't great. So, but now with the in-ears, I have to say I can play a show, and after the show, I can still talk to people at a normal level and still understand what they say, and that has been very good for me. And here's one other thing I want not to forget. I think the guitar that one is using is also important in this equation with the in-ears, because like if you have a guitar that is it's quite dead in its vibrations, as you know, like some instruments are deader than others, but like I have been using a hollow body touch guitar for the last 6 years or so, so it is extremely sensitive. And so that's why anything that happens on stage, even if it's low volume, already feeds back a little bit, and that's why it feels great, you know. So I really wouldn't want to go back to a solid body, really. I think because it's nice to have the hollow body with, you know, with that resonance that happens at low levels even.
One other thing about volume and your ears getting geschont, your ears don't get this damage from in-ears as much as from wedges. But for myself, I don't know. It's I crank myself up in these in-ears. Sometimes I have these really good, expensive in-ears that have I don't know, a four-way system or whatever. And I crank myself up in these in-ears because I want to have it loud, and I don't think it's actually healthy. The volume I'm turning up the in-ears, but I think maybe it's become better with now I'm over 40, and maybe I became a little bit more peaceful. Maybe it's not that damaging as it used to be. I don't remember having ear noises after shows as it used to be maybe 10 years ago. After 10 years ago, like playing 3 days of a tour, my ears are already suffering badly. So this has become better.
Yeah. Wow. So like tours are slowly coming back, and
oh yes, but how I don't know how will this develop, especially in Germany. I don't know. It's we met in 2020 at this tour. This year we had a similar tour again with a way better vibe, I would say, but still people were not coming to shows. It was they could have come, but they didn't come. It will take because they were scared or they don't want to go out. They just got used to stay at home, but it will take really more time, lots of more time until.
Yeah. You know, I played 2 shows in Czech Republic about a week ago. And the organizers, they were very happy about the turnout at our shows because there were like 250 people or so.
Oh, that's good.
Which was a lot, because they said that normally the percentage of sales they get compared to before COVID is about 10%, they said.
Okay.
That is shocking, right? Shocking if you think about it. Sure. Like going from 1,000 tickets to 100. That basically means that a lot of shows will not happen anymore, right?
Yeah.
And especially if we're talking about, you know, like acts that usually have maybe between 100 and 300 people coming, you know.
Right. Yeah, for instance, or also for about earning a living from live playing, which was always the thing I wanted to do, but everything that I wanted ever to do in my life, going out, playing at shows and going abroad playing shows, everything of this is not possible, or has not been possible at all. Now it's coming back a little bit, but still making a living from it, I mean, was hard before that already, but right now at the moment making a living from live shows.
Yeah.
What do you think? When will we able? When will come back? You don't know too, right?
No, there are so many factors, you know, like one of the really sad, for me, the sad realities that COVID brings with itself is that there's a generational change happening in so many layers of the business, let's say. So first of all, like obviously older musicians that lose like 2.5 years of their touring life, they may not go back on the road. That's kind of like one thing, which is, yeah, I mean, it's a big problem. But then also on the level of the booking agents or the club owners, you know, like the people that book the clubs, the shows in clubs, for example, they may give up, you know, or have to do some other job, and then they don't know anymore who is or what is Panzerballett, right? Like it's so even the connections you may have had and the opportunities you may have had, suddenly they are like being erased or reset, you could say. So and I think that's something that we should be kind of like aware of, that it may happen. But I think it can go in either direction. It can be a very, very bad thing where like a whole cultural movement will get wiped out, or it means like a reset in a good way, that there is going to be like better opportunities, or like that some that you can take the place of some other act somehow that has kind of become
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean. So I think that's why I really don't know what to say or what's going to happen, because the big change has started, and we will see what's going to happen. I believe for myself that there is going to be a need for what I do. I believe that there is an audience for it, that there is, I mean, I can only talk for myself here, but I believe there is an audience, there will be a need, there will be some way in which I can still play, I really think. And you know, but like I have had the privilege to play these international tours with Tony Levin because he's so famous, right? So that's the only reason why I've gotten to that place. And I don't know how it was for you. Like you seem like for you it seems, from my perspective, even more unlikely that you managed to have an international career with what you do. I think it's great. You know, it's almost like a miracle, you know.
Yes.
And so, but the question is really like, how is this miracle going to continue or evolve in the near future?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I want to bring like Panzerballett. I know there is a market, of course there's a market in Germany, but there's also a market in the US, for instance. I want to try to, as soon as this is possible, I want to bring this to the US as well, or at least try it, play some shows. I think you just have to keep trying. I'll never give up. I still believe in that, because what I've been doing is so much influenced from music that comes from the States, and I think I have something to say. I created my own idea of what influenced me, because from the beginning you asked me about my influences. It was all like, not only the Brecker Brothers, it was all like American musicians or bands, acts like New York based the Screaming Headless Torsos, or it was Virgil Donati with Planet X. In the early days it was Dream Theater, but later then it was, and then Meshuggah. Okay, that's the Swedish guys, but still then all those fusion guys like Frank Gambale and Scott Henderson and Alan Holdsworth. and all this fusion that came from there, it has influenced my music so much.
Yeah.
And
I think that Panzerballett would have there's a great audience there, and in the US, especially for very unique music. Like there are a few things that I only learned over the years. So what is like the big difference between, say, Germany and the US? First of all, the US is so much bigger. There are so many people there, and there has been this, and there still is, like the system of college radio. So that means that there has been like more like curation from people who are really in love with music at these college radio stations. So people kind of like grew up with a different relationship and much better access to music. So that's why there's more prog music, say, like also on the East Coast than on the West Coast, and because of these DJs. But it's not like DJs like in Germany, where it was like only the public radio, right? So it was like private and universities and stuff like that, and that I think is kind of like still the kind of audience that really appreciates and loves something special and something unique, and it's so I think that for Panzerballett, the US would they would really love you guys. I really think so.
I believe so too, but the thing is, you have to be there to get the attention or to be present.
I don't know if that's true. I think like if you have the bonus of being like from Germany, right, and you actually come there as a guest, you have a much better standing as somebody who's living there. It's also like it's also something. It's also something that I learned. Is like that there is certainly a bonus to not living there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like for me, again, like I'm in this fortunate situation to be in an American band with two Americans, right? So like for me, it's easy to say that, but yeah, there's an advantage to that. And like before I joined Stickman, I was actually seriously considering to move to the US, and I had plans to move to Austin. And then I joined the band, and I realized, okay, I don't have to move here anymore because I'm touring with the American band in the US anyway, and I have this bonus of being exotic, from Germany, and it was ideal. So I think that you don't necessarily have to be there, but you have to have somebody there who gets you the gigs.
Yeah,
that's really what needs to happen. You have to have that foot in the door somehow.
Yes, for sure. But that's something I'm working on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is what I'm saying. So maybe the future will really bring things that we couldn't really believe would happen. I say, like there's going to be quite a few bands that won't be touring anymore.
Yeah,
I really think so.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it doesn't apply to me because it's what I'm definitely living for and what I'm striving to the most. So I will.
You're also young enough.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. But I'll do anything in my do everything I can to go back on tour.
Yeah.
So just right now it's not very not even harder, but okay, maybe next year or whatever.
Yeah. Have you guys been asked to play on the prog cruise, on the cruise ship? Have you ever gotten asked?
Never. No, never. But I would have liked to, but we never got asked. No, but you could.
I can ask them.
You can ask them.
Please bring Panzerballett on the cruise ship. That would be cool. Yeah.
I think there was one cruise ship. Maybe there was one. I think Mike Portnoy he had a slot or something on a cruise ship, or maybe it was he had a slot for some of the bands, and I think we could have he chose some bands who could go there and play, but to go there and play you have to buy flight tickets, and you have to you have lots of expenses before you go out on stage there. And if you have musicians, and I'm in a situation when I have to pay the musicians, that I have to pay them also, because they it's a different we're not like a band, it's a dictatorship. So I have the ideas, but I also have to pay for bringing or making them play my ideas. So
exactly. That's you're a band leader. You're a real band leader, which again is like something that can be pretty scary, right? Like it's like running a company. It's running a company, and that's making sure you have enough turnover that you can pay your people, right? It's quite something.
Actually, it's nothing that I actually wanted to do to be or had to do something to be a band leader. Well, now it's nice to be, but also not. And also, what I actually want to do is play some awesome music and not care about anything else. Just whether it is my music or other people's music, which is great, then I would totally be in it. Or like what you do, like playing with Tony Levin, or something like this, being a sideman in an awesome group. That's already would be already enough for me. But no, there is no call, so I have to make it myself. I have to make it for myself. So I have to. I had to write some songs, get some gigs, organize some stuff, and then so there are the gigs. But if I stop doing this, nothing happens. So I have to continue being that band leader. but
Jan,
along the way,
that is just amazing, Jan. That's really what makes a real artist. And as you say, like you used the word that you were obsessed, or that you are obsessed.
Totally.
Which is kind of like the connotation of that is kind of negative, like obsession, but you could call it like love, and you have a love for what you do, and you make everything happen that needs to happen. You kind of like raise the money, you blah blah blah, you write the music, you get the musicians, you I don't know, like I'm sure you're doing almost everything, like you're playing the tours and whatever, and I think that's real dedication, and that's kind of the kind of artist that is really absolutely how shall I say this, like a god kind of artist, like somebody who makes everything happen themselves, because as you say, if you don't do it yourself, nothing's going to happen. It's a sad reality. Like my friend Leonardo, who is also a booking agent for me.
I know Leo.
He sometimes he posts these funny things on Facebook actually. And the other day he posted something like, you may have a new website with a store, but blah blah blah. If you don't promote, people don't know that you have a new store, nobody's gonna buy your music. And this is sort of like absolutely true in all regards when it comes to being an artist. Like no matter how much we don't want to sell ourselves, we have to. And if we don't do it, nobody's ever going to listen to the music. Nobody's going to even know about it. And that's why I like your attitude a lot. And I think it's great that you through all these years that you keep going, and that COVID isn't stopping you. And
no, for sure. But it was stopping me at some time. At some point, I wasn't, when I was really depressed knowing that, I mean, everything that I want to do is not possible, and you don't know when it ever will come back. Will it ever come back? This was depressing, and I lost my motivation in creating music. So that's why I took on this piece by Ligeti, which is it's a piano, this piano etude, and I took it, and it took me. Well, I'm still working on it. I think it's called the Devil's Staircase. This is 50 bars, and it took me to rearrange it for guitar and bass and drums to do this, and practice it to have it at the tempo that's comparable to the original tempo, because there are some pianists who play it incredibly fast. But it took me 1 week per bar. And this thing has 50 bars, so you can guess it's a work of a year. But I was doing only this for 20 weeks. So I had 20 bars I had done, and then some of the jobs came back. So I put that away again. And now I got a scholarship. You can apply for scholarships, and now I have from GEMA, they have a scholarship for something you do with music or arrange or play. And I applied with doing the rest 30 bars. Mm-hmm. They gave me some money they agreed to it. So now I may finish that. That's what I'm doing now. But it's not a real the kind of creative work I do with my own compositions, but it's awesome work because it takes time, but the music by Ligeti is, and that particular thing is beautiful, and I think it's interesting it's something never has done before, taking this kind of piece, translating this into a sound that like with electric guitars, with distortion, with volume and everything. Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. This wasn't nothing really creative. This was just learning note by note, bar by bar, slowly. This was my way of dealing with COVID, without any hope for playing live in the next future, just sinking into something I would never do without that happening. I would never had the time, and would never get the idea of working on something that has such a slow progress. Mm-hmm. But now I started it. Now I will finish it.
Incredible. Like you've just made me think about the definition of creativity. And I have had this thought or this feeling for a long time that creativity can also be described as commitment. So that it's not necessarily about what you create, right? So it's not necessarily about writing music, but for example, you can have a commitment that is, like you say, you learn those 50 bars of music, which is a creative act because you're creating something inside you by doing that. More so than just being able to play the piece, the process of learning that you go through as you do that is a creative act. So it's kind of like you're kind of rewriting your brain in a way, like you're reprogramming, recreating something inside of you. And that's why I think what you're doing there is creative, even though I know what you mean, that it's and for me, that has always been a big part of my musical ongoing training, that sometimes I just practice and I don't write or, but then I go, when I then go on stage after having practiced for 3 months, let's say, and I suddenly see I'm starting to play something new, something different, or something that I didn't expect, or something that I thought I couldn't do before. And then it kind of goes from being something that I worked on the inside to something that also comes out on the outside. And so that's why I think it's going to be interesting to see what will happen to your writing or to your future compositions. after having had that experience of learning the Ligeti piece.
Right, but you know what? My most favorite thing ever to do, besides being on tour, whatever, but I think the best, my best connection with music is having created an own composition and sometimes you have a good day or a bad day or something goes well, and or you find you have the ultimate idea and you bring it to paper, or in my case to your computer and or into Cubase, and you have it done. The piece is done and it's amazing, but you can't play it yet. It's because I always try to write something that's challenging, and then I may learn this piece on the own creation. I'm privileged to learn this. This is so much fun and challenge and gives me so much to. And in the end, I will have something that I created and I also mastered something. So that's I think that's my favorite, the favorite part. That's in all of the process of creating, recording, whatever. This part is when it comes to grabbing the instrument and learning something, some music, which is also your own, you created. You have to technically master it, and yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. I also like to master, like with Ligeti, stuff from others, from other composers, because the last album, for instance, Panzerballett album, there were lots of guest composers, and it was awesome to learn their pieces. But this was especially because I didn't have I didn't have any own ideas. I wanted other ideas to see what others do with what they think of Panzerballett could sound, and they gave me their compositions, or they wrote for me something for me, and I could learn it. This was good too, but still the best thing was learning your own stuff. Yeah. This was the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, it's great, because that also means that the your technical or like your instrumental facility, let's say, does not hold you back in your writing. You know, so so it's basically like two completely different persons, let's say, the person who writes and the person who then plays it or has to learn it. So I think that's wonderful if you can do that, you know, because I think like most, you know, in the business, like this is something else, like in the music business, it's something where there's hardly time to rehearse for rehearsal, because there's not enough money to pay for rehearsals, right? And so what happens is that either you know, you have great musicians who prepare at home, so they really know what they're doing. They get together, you have like an afternoon, you play, and everything is fine. But like this time to actually learn something new, to learn something that goes beyond what people kind of like can do, you know, that is, and I totally agree, that is the magical moment when you can actually have the time. And it is like time is required. That is kind of like the only thing you need. That, you know, like on the other hand, and I have to say this, sometimes I get really bored by seeing these modern guitarists who play stuff where like all I can think then when they play is, oh, okay, like I just need to sit down for 10 years and play this same thing that you play, and then I can do it. So, and it gets boring to me also sometimes, you know, to see that like, but I completely agree with you. Just having the luxury to write something that you can't play and then learn it, that is incredibly satisfying. Yeah.
And also, if you know, maybe you know this feeling that you created something that you think is good enough now, or this is something you can live with, or maybe you're proud of, or you had luck, you were lucky and have a new own piece, and you realize, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. I'm going to perform this because I have done it so much often before. So there's no reason why I shouldn't do it with this too. So at that moment that I created, I know, oh my God, this is awesome. Oh my God, I'm going to perform it and I know it. And this is cool. I don't know if you know that feeling, but this is one of my favorite moments too in this whole process.
Yeah.
The moment you realize you created it and you know you can pull it off, you will pull it off and you will bring it on stage. People are going to listen to this, what you just did. that's amazing.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's a little different because I'm also focusing a lot on improvisation. And when I say, like for a lot of people, improvisation is something like for me, it is composition, right? So I'm working on composing in the moment, and it's that is the most magical aspect of creating for me, because when I'm on stage and I play what other people would call a solo, right, which for me is a composition, I would then, as I play it, I sort of become like almost a robot. Like I you know, it's very, very difficult. Like it's not that I'm making these conscious decisions. It's like I'm letting my body play, and I can kind of like watch and listen to what my body does. But obviously, since my body is active in that moment, I can't listen perfectly well. So that means that the listening back to the recording of an improvisation is, for me, is like that wow moment where I listen to, dude, you know, like, I say, like, wow, what an amazing melody. Like, and it's like usually the melodies that come out when I improvise are melodies that I could not write. And that's, you know, that's why I'm so interested in finding them that way, because writing them would be so incredibly difficult, right? But then my body, when put into the situation, like, you know, of now you have to play on top of these chords, then, you know, something really amazing comes out, and that I actually enjoy listening to most of the time, right? And then I realized, okay, there is actually this composition that happens under pressure, you could say. That's sort of like I enjoy that a lot. And
wow, that's a big, I mean, that's something that you have to have the gift for that, or maybe also the kind of mindset or dedication for it, or you have to be fearless in some way to do this. There is some, and I sometimes, because I used to play improvised music every now and then, maybe this happens a couple of times, maybe once in a year or twice in a year, when there's completely improvised music, and which I don't do so often. So then sometimes I feel uncomfortable at first. I think what's going to happen, and then maybe something bad happens, and then I see, oh, I already was expecting something bad would happen. But then sometimes something great happens, and then it's even better. But in general, I would say I prefer to have a plan, a quite detailed plan, and leave some spaces for improvisations to happen. Still, to leave some open space, because I think it's a little bit boring to have like 100%. Everything is composed like it's a little bit. That's how do you say? That's a little bit feige. What's that?
Yeah.
Feige. Yeah.
People can look it up.
Yeah, that's not having the guts to really leave something open. I like that, but to leave things completely open, I don't feel comfortable doing too much of that. So I feel very comfortable having this detailed plan. But I think improvisation was always a part of, it's a completely different way of thinking, way of approaching the music. And I think for myself, it was always nice to have both elements in it. or place this element of improvisational parts, open parts into something that is composed, to have both, to have evenings, like shows you have an element that makes each evening like a little bit different. And this is, I think, very exciting. Exciting part about music. And I also like to practice improvising and to improvise solos. That's always been important to me as well. Yeah.
I think like the reason why I mentioned this is because you were saying that for you the best thing is when you write something and then you learn it, and for me it's sort of like the other way around. So I learn to write in the moment, and as you say, it requires a completely different practice, like, so it's much more about from my own perspective on my instrument, it's about the movement of the fingers on the fretboard. It's not even about the pitches, it's not about which notes there are, but it's the like how you get from A to B, right, in the and how you can just so for example, and this may be interesting to you, because with the touch guitar, there's a course, and one of the big insights that I have had this year is that what happens normally when you learn an exercise, for example, is that because the body learns the exercise by heart, right? So with auswendig in German, right? So what happens is that the hand or the fingers start preparing. Like, even if you're not consciously preparing for the next note, subconsciously your hand kind of like knows where it's going to go, and it means that this trajectory from note A to note B is something that sort of like is built into the practice of that exercise. What happens is that exercise really becomes something that becomes super static because you prepare. So there's more than just playing the notes. There's also something in between the notes that you practice, right? So now what I've learned for me as, like, if I want to be like a free improviser, I should never prepare. Like, any note, every single note I play should be like only that note, nothing else. No preparation. I don't want to know where I'm going to go after this note, because I don't want anything to put me into any particular direction. I want to be free to go anywhere. And that has been like a big insight now about the technique, where like how we can kind of like work on the basic exercises without preparing the next movement. And so it's that kind of level that I'm practicing with, like, where it's about really these super fine technical details, and very different from learning to play, like, say tuplets and properly in time, and stuff like that, which is something it's completely different, or but it's about kind of like not knowing what's gonna come next, and to feel totally comfortable and not having the body kind of like give a twitch into a certain direction.
Yeah, I totally admire that. It's amazing. I think I'm totally different, because maybe I have something. There are some elements that are obsessive compulsive a little bit. For me, I need my rituals, so I need to have something that I do every day and do the same thing for a long time. Or what did Alan Holdsworth say once in an interview? Totally different thing, Alan Holdsworth. But I kept that. He was asked. Alan Holdsworth was asked, "What do you practice?" How do you practice? Well, I take one thing and I do it for a very, very long time. So that's what I'm also doing. I have exercises. Maybe I found an exercise, and some of them I've been doing for 10 years now, and maybe developing it a little bit, but basically I'm still doing this thing, and I have my rituals, and I am a big part of how I'm practicing is doing this same thing and perfecting it, or improving it maybe, and learning to use it in improvisation, for instance, and learning to apply it because I play different bands or setups or whatever. I finding these things that are useful in different situations and then use them. So I get better that way. And I don't. It's even the progress is very hidden. I don't notice a progress from maybe month, 1 month in the next month, or one gig on the next gig. I just notice when I get back to like there were like some shows or before and after COVID, like the first shows after COVID that like you did that tour, but for myself it was wow. Hey, I didn't play that in the last gig. I couldn't do such things. Suddenly I realized, hey, I got better. I must have done something. Something must have happened. I just realize it's the effect of time and persistence.
Exactly. And I think it's that long-term perspective, let's say, that really creates something super powerful. Like again, this is another thing that I kind of start sensing in younger people, right? Is that this idea of instant gratification, but with music and practicing a musical instrument, as you say, the power is in doing one thing over a very, very long time, and to find all the qualities within that one thing, and to really get I even believe that like the real personality of musicians lies in actually in what they practice, right? Because it's like you are what you eat, but you are also what you practice on your instrument.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's the long-term thing, which and I think that is really fantastic that you do that as well. And especially like when was Panzerballett founded, actually? Which year?
2004. So
okay.
we are going to be 18 soon. In January we're going to be 18.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a time.
Yeah. So one, maybe last thing for
yes.
maybe we what is your knowledge about music theory and stuff? Are you interested in that at all?
Theory?
Yeah, like what people call music theory. Are you interested in that? Is that something that you kind of like keep studying, or is that something that has become just natural for you to kind of like compose without thinking about theory?
No, I think I really don't study any music theory. I just study my instrument, and I have some ideas, as I always was. I have some ideas that I develop, or I take an idea and I take it somewhere, or I have maybe one single idea, and I try things with it and develop them, and on that way I found some tools over the years that I use to change these things, to adapt them to each other. And these are my own tools, and of course these tools are based on my knowledge on some music theory, or what I studied in when studying jazz music, or some arranging things. But that's 20 years ago, and since then there is maybe sometimes but that's not actually music theory. I have just I read some guitar, or I watch some guitar video and someone explains something, the way he looks at chords or whatever. I get one new idea. Maybe it doesn't take much. It just basically takes, there are millions of ideas. It takes maybe one idea, single idea, that makes one of your ideas that changes your view in just one maybe single way, something you haven't seen before. And this opens some of these tiny little things, they open new doors. And because of that, you start looking, you can apply these little other things in a zillion ways, because you already have all the tools and paths you go, and you just apply this tiny little improvement to all of your ideas, and it's a whole new, if it's the right idea, it will take you in from yeah, it will take your, how can I explain it? It opens, a tiny idea might open a whole new door, because it changes your many ideas you already have in a way. It affects them, so you can try it out in many ways. So that's what and it has nothing to do with music theory. It could have something to do with it if you analyze it, and what is this? What was this guy doing actually? You can think about, but I never think about that. I just think about these tiny little edits of your own stuff that open new doors, and that's the way I and it's all about guitar. I was never a piano player. It would have been a good thing to do this more, get more knowledge about harmony, whatever. But I always have my fretboard, and basically in my heart, I'm still that 16-year-old guy learning to play an AC/DC riff. Just this riff became more complex, and I got more and more ideas how to change these riffs to something more interesting, or maybe more thrilling. And that's basically the way it all developed. I mean, what I do is I play my own riffs, but they're of course, they're not only riffs, they evolve, and now they're complex buildings. But basically the feeling is still the same. It's not, I never thought to think about the theory. It just naturally developed over 20 years or 25 years that I play guitar. It's constantly, I got some ideas from either studying jazz, or reading some guitar magazine, or watching some guitar videos, or asking a friend or a colleague, hey, what do you practice? And maybe he has an idea. So I grab all these ideas, and if I like it, I stick with it, and get inspiration.
No, I totally get what you mean. It's like there was a time when I had like a manifesto for my compositions, and even like for the improvisations of a group I had. And then the first rule was of the manifesto was, one idea is more than enough. So it's, and with the focus on more than enough. So that means like you don't even necessarily need a new idea. You can kind of like work more with what you already have, right? There's like and like this idea of like sticking with one thing for a long time. So maybe look at another permutation or whatever. Like, but don't necessarily always believe that you have to have a new idea in order to be creative, but it's everything is sort of like flowing anyway, and as you say, like maybe there's one little discovery which opens a whole new world, and it's I think it's isn't it great to be to make music as art, isn't it awesome?
Yeah, it's the best.
Not to have to make something that satisfies a certain person or taste or whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And at the same time, especially in your case with Panzerballett, you in that process you create your own style or your own sound world, you know, and it's just awesome to see this. And I mean, like, people who have not heard you talk before, so they will be like, you have this infectious energy, you know, of love and obsession for music,
that's just the background light. It's so red, you know, like it's
yeah,
passion.
it's passion, like this devilish look. Hey,
Yeah,
wonderful. Hey, thank you for taking the
yeah,
time to do this, and I would love to talk with you again
yes,
at some point, because there's
would
so
be
much more.
so much more. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
thank you. And
I'll stop here. So
okay,
see you soon.